Hey guys, Ben with Triathlon here, and today I wanted to have a little fireside chat about off-season gains. In reality though, it is actually snowing outside my house right now, which means even more time spent on the trainer than normal. So these are a couple things that I'm going to be thinking about related to my bike position and bike setup going into the 2025 season. The first thing, which is maybe a bit obvious, is going to be comfort and position, right? I mean, these are the biggest aspects of speed when it comes to racing the bike in triathlons. So I'm always thinking about how I can get both more comfortable without sacrificing speed. Now, current trends like we've seen from various setups at Kona very much indicate that most people are going longer, higher, and with more tilt. So that combination I found personally is actually very, very comfortable. It's just easy to ride. Getting that much higher, we're no longer in this era where people are dropping a huge amount between the saddle and the bars. We can now ride almost a level position in some cases and not be losing out on that much speed. Now, one issue with that right now is that a lot of bikes just don't allow you to get long enough. So one easy band-aid for that, if you are struggling with getting enough reach on your bike with getting out there, is longer arm cups. That doesn't have to be the Scoops Ultimate like these, but any of our longer arm cups like the Signature or the Carbon version are gonna give you kind of a band-aid, I always say, to allow more reach on your setup. So there's no rule that says you have to ride with your elbows all the way back on the arm cups. So we can mount our arm cups wherever we want and then slide our elbows up 3, 4, 5 centimeters even and get that much extra reach without having to change anything except our arm cups. It's a really effective way to kind of fix minor geometry issues that a lot of us have on our bikes right now. Most people find that as they go longer, they also want to raise the bars up. And I think this is primarily comfort driven here. And I mean, it's really nice to be able to do, especially if you're racing half Ironmans, full Ironmans. It's just going to mean more time spent in aero. So some bars are going to be easier to do that than others. Something like the Alpha 1, I mean, crazy easy to just adjust that height up and down. But definitely look into getting additional spacers for your bike if you do go with this stretched out method. With that, hand in hand, a lot of people find adding tilt is nice. Unfortunately, a lot of bars out there still don't allow for a ton of tilt adjustment. So if you are struggling with that, consider going with some angled spacers that you can put under your arm cups. And then if it's a standard setup, you can do that with some high-rise extensions, or if you're running something like the Scoops Ultimate, those angled spacers are gonna add that tilt to the entire front end there. Now, maybe you're looking at some Black Friday sales and thinking, is this finally the year that I upgrade my old bike? I'm a little biased when it comes to this topic because this bike that I'm racing is nearly 15 years old at this point, but honestly, I just don't think it's holding me back because I've set it up with a modern front end like our Tri-Rig Alpha 1. So I find that a lot of people kind of looking for that new bike feel are able to scratch that itch with just replacing the cockpit. And thankfully the Alpha 1 works on most bikes out there, especially older ones, and some newer ones like a Cervelo P Series or a Canyon Speedmax CF7, like the lower version there. But really, so many bikes are still kind of limited by their front end. And so going to the modern front end, not just for fit adjustability like we just talked about, but also for aerodynamics, it's hard to beat that value when it comes to upgrading an old frame. Like I said, when we're kind of tinkering with our position more in the off season, the Alpha 1 makes it easier to do that than any other bar out there. I've been riding basically the same front end on different bikes, to be fair, for 5 years now, and I will still be riding my trainer and I'll think, I wonder what it would feel like if I was 3 centimeters lower. And I hop off my bike, it takes me literally 15 seconds to lower the entire front end by 3 centimeters. I ride for the next half hour, I think, yeah, I like that, no, I didn't like that. Same thing with the tilt. Between 0 and 17.5 degrees of tilt adjustment with just 2 bolts. It's really, really easy to tinker with that position. So whether or not you're doing that for the purpose of aero testing or not, I mean, for aero testing, it's really invaluable because you can be that much more efficient in position changes. But just having that ability to kind of tweak on the fly and find the position that's going to be most comfortable for you is probably the biggest benefit of the Alpha One. Now, if you have a road bike but you're still racing some triathlons next year, consider swapping to the Sigma 1 stem. It's got most of the advantages of the Alpha One, but plays nice with drop bars, both on road bikes and gravel bikes. So you still have the stack adjustment through the monopost, you still have the super easy, accessible tilt, and just all the flexibility and kind of fit options that the Alpha One provides. Now, speaking of benefits of the Alpha One, it's hard to look past this previous season of racing without paying attention to the hydration setups, right? So, I mean, I've got my own setup here that I'm quite happy with now, but I am such a tinkerer. I'm always going to be continuing to find either better bottle cage placement, more bottle cage placement. I mean, I did use every sip of fluid that I'm carrying in my full Ironman this year, and that was not a particularly hot race. So if I'm sweating, I could use even more fluid on my bike. So definitely take this time on the trainer before you start bringing your bike outside again for 2025 to experiment with different locations of bottle cages. There's no harm in trying even the craziest of setups. This is pretty wild, but I mean, we saw crazier at Kona. So both behind the saddle and between the arms, don't be afraid to tinker with those positions. Don't be afraid to get a little crazy. I personally find that my handling just isn't affected that much despite having 3 bottle cages up there. So, be mindful of it, but yeah, I mean, the trend is definitely go crazy, and I'm a big fan of it. I think the main moral of the story here is don't be afraid to tweak your position or tweak your setup. Even if you're pretty happy with where you are right now or you paid a bunch of money for a fit, that doesn't mean you have to stay there. I think we're seeing things change so fast when it comes to bike setups, especially with hydration right now, and positions, that there's no reason to feel like you're stuck in your current setup. Now, of course, some setups are going to be easier to adjust than others, but there's no reason why you can't always be kind of tweaking and mimicking what the top pros are doing. That's not to say what they're doing is always going to be fastest for everyone, but it does give a good indication, at least if we're following people that we know are testing and we know are smart about their equipment choices. So I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on kind of what people are doing over the off season. Definitely at the first couple races of the year, I'm going to be ready to kind of change everything up, but it's good to be able to be flexible and take this time, these months where we're going to be spending more time on the trainer, just to, make the best setup that you can for yourself.